This is TV18 and you're watching CNBC TV18.
To many, Smriti Irani is still Tulsi, a character that remains one of Indian soap television's most memorable and loved. But it is to Smriti's credit that she has now managed to carve out a distinct identity as a politician who has gone beyond the popularity of her on-screen character. As the national vice president of the Bhartiya Janata Party, Smriti is now one of the party's youngest and most vocal faces.
देश की राजधानी में एक बच्ची अपने मोहल्ले में 3 दिन तक बलात्कार का शिकार होती है और दिल्ली पुलिस मोहल्ले में 5 साल की लड़की को ढूंढ नहीं पाती.
Her feisty brand of plainspeak has ensured her daily primetime appearances on many a heated television debate, a job she seems to relish. On the A-list today, Smriti Irani talks to Naomi Datta about being a woman politician and says that she sees no glass ceilings for women who want a political career.
Thank you, Smriti. Thank you so much for being on the A-list. You got stuck in Mumbai's horrendous traffic, but you're here, thankfully.
Thanks for calling me.
Okay, Smriti, to begin with, I just want to ask you about a slightly general trend. Now, everywhere in the world, not just in politics, there is gender diversity, which is happening. But even in, emancipated boardrooms, somehow women reach their glass ceiling very fast, okay? Now, as a woman politician, which is a bit of a rarity, have you found your glass ceiling? Is there a glass ceiling?
Firstly, I think CNBC itself has broken the so-called glass ceiling. I believe Shirin Bhan is now in charge of the editorial team. But I think as a woman who believes that I will compete with a man on equal footing because I'm blessed with an education. And because of that education, I'm empowered enough to compete with a man equally. I somehow reject this notion of having a glass ceiling. But at the same time, I recognize that there are many women who are struggling for lack of opportunity to either educate themselves or to have an equal opportunity of employment, who are struggling to, yes, break that glass ceiling. But I'm of the opinion that my entire life has not been a bed of roses, but I have not let it cower me down in any way whatsoever. I remember there was a quote by Anne Ryan, and I was a voracious reader, which has stuck to me all my life. And she had said that the question is not who's going to let me, the question is who's going to stop me.
But the perception across board, do women have to work twice as hard in what is essentially a man's world? And then I will personalize it to your politics.
I have a chip on my shoulder of being from not a very rich family.
Okay.
I've always had the chip on my shoulder, and I've always been accepting of it. I've never denied that that is a chip on my shoulder. I mean, I've lived with it. So I don't look at this gender issue per se as too much of a huge issue for me. For me, the economic disparity, the background that I came for was so large that for me that was an issue, that I was from the not haves, have-nots, and who's come to this position now. So possibly I've never looked at the gender divide per se. I've always looked at the economic divide, and I've always confronted that. And in my personal life, in my entire journey, that has been a more of a relevant, relevant circumstance or a relevant issue. Not the gender issue.
But what is tougher, getting the women in or sensitizing men to have women be part of the political process?
I am quite lucky to be a part of an organization which doesn't look upon a particular issue as only a woman's issue. I remember when the Delhi rape tragedy had taken place. At that time, when I was in conference with all my leaders, including the male members of my party, we had all come to a similar conclusion, that let our voices be heard unitedly as men and as women. Let not there be an impression given that because it's a security issue related to women, that only women in the party will speak. So I think that in my party, I don't need to go an extra mile to convince the men, because thankfully it is the men in the party actually who for the first time changed the constitution of the party and gave reservation for women within the party. We're the only political organization to do so. So men didn't need that much of coaxing. in my party at least.
But in Parliament, we are lower than the global index. There is
Yes.
11% representation of women. Now, does that reflect on the quality of legislation? For instance, when you're talking about the anti-rape bill, do you miss the feminine voice, the female voice in parliamentary proceedings?
Would I want much more feminine power to be reflected in Indian Parliament? Of course I would. But the ladies who are representing various political organizations spoke during that particular, when that bill was being passed. But I think fundamentally what we are all pursuing is that one stage where the 33% reservation bill is passed in Parliament. If you notice, our history will show that the BJP, irrespective of being in opposition in the Rajya Sabha, in fact is the one which strengthened the government to pass the 33% reservation bill in Rajya Sabha. And the gentleman leading the charge, Mr. Arun Jaitley, the leader of opposition, has been very vocal about his support. Now we are waiting for the lady president of the Congress party to bring it into Lok Sabha so that we can all collectively pass it. My agenda is very clear. That when it comes to legislation, I'll pore over each line, each comma, each full stop to ensure at least there are no loopholes when it comes to a citizen getting justice, when it comes to a citizen getting fruits of development.
Going back a little to your political career, when you stepped into politics, you were on top of the game in terms of your television career. You know, you were one of the superstars of Indian TV. Did you have to think a lot about making this move into politics,
No.
or was it instant?
I thought it was quite passé. In fact, quite uncomplimentary that people would choose politics only when they would have a dwindling career in media or entertainment. For me, if you ever have an opportunity to read Yashwantrao Kelkar, the founder of Akhil Bhartiya Vidyarthi Parishad, he said, don't come into politics because you have nothing better to do. If you have a profession and you excel in that profession and you give up that success and then contribute to politics, possibly you will cherish your contribution even more because you realize what you've left behind to be a part of grassroots activity. And it was not very difficult for me because I was very clear in my concepts. I knew that I could have a career in media, that I could have a family back home, and I could also pursue political activism.
But there would also be perceptions that you have to grapple with. Okay, firstly, yes, okay, and you know about them. First, of course, you're a woman getting into a largely male-oriented profession, which is the same for a lot of professions, and you're an actor. A lot of time, actors are used for getting in the crowds.
I
or
wouldn't
as
blame people who
for that perception.
For that perception. I came in knowing fully well that there is a prejudice about actors, and I didn't blame people who had that perception about actors. I felt that it was incumbent upon me as to what kind of a niche I carve out for myself. I think that perception was created primarily because when questioned on issues of current affairs, many would fumble. When interacting with people at large, people would mostly depend on the screen image that they have, and I was very clear that that is not the perception or the image that I wanted. It was the easiest thing to do. Go be that actor that people have seen and admired on screen, and to get people in hordes coming and supporting. It was the easiest thing to do, and I deliberately chose the tougher way out because I felt that this is a commitment for life. And I believe that when I got into my organization, I told people absolutely clearly that I do not want a political position per se, just because I am well known. I want to start at the bottom of the pyramid, which I did. I started with the youth wing in Maharashtra, and from there on I worked. And there was always this comfort zone that possibly people who have a public image enjoy, with the press following every move of theirs. And I was already in the spotlight being an actor, and I deliberately ensured that my work as a political activist would never have the camera following me 24/7. So I kept low-key in terms of my political work because I wanted to make sure that my work spoke or my contribution spoke, and people judged me on the merit of the work that I'd done.
So, and what did contesting and losing an election very early in your political career do for your graph as a politician, as in your political career?
Well,
what sort of learning was that?
The prejudice was that A is an actor and B is that now that she has lost, she'll run away and she'll not be found anywhere else. and it's after some time that people realize, oh, she's here to stay. And I think that the election was a life-changing experience for me, because it's very easy to speak about how an election is engineered on television, on camera. It's very difficult to live through that process, because it's a life-changing experience, like I said. And remember, at that time I had a 2-year-old kid at home,
Yeah.
and I was trying to manage a career in media and a child. In fact, I remember when the Rajasthan assembly polls had taken place just a year before that, I had a 6-month baby at home, and I was running all over Rajasthan and campaigning, coming back home. So for me at that time, those were challenging times, but I knew that I'm here to stay. So very difficult to nudge me at that time.
But what did it do for you? I mean, did you take it personally? I mean, losing something. I mean, you were up against a formidable adversity, but losing something, and you're on top of the popularity game. This is based on popular support. So when you lose something, or
no, I think there's a misconception somewhere that election is about popular support.
Okay.
I think election is all about how you address the brass tacks.
Okay.
It is how about what kind of skills you have to possibly juggle numbers, possibly juggle certain peculiar, how do I put this, issues which are related to your constituency. I think it's not a mandate on popularity per se, but I am also of the beliefs that for me, like you said, how did it change me personally? For me, it was just another not even a bump on the road, just a turn in the road. But I was very sure that my destination is the fact that I'll stay with the party and I'm in for the long run. So for me, election was just a part of my political career.
Part of your growth.
Part
in
of
a
my
sense.
growth, but part of my political career. I was here to invest my time in the organization, which is what I stayed with. I was not here only to indulge in campaigning. I was not here only to indulge in electoral politics. I was here contributing to my organization, and I think that's what kept me going.
Smriti, if I could ask you, do you look at politics as social work, or do you look at it as a career choice?
Social work is a term which is very loosely used
Isn't it?
in many circles.
Yes.
So for me, I get quite amused when people say, oh, I'm here to do social work.
Exactly.
It doesn't have a serious connotation to it. Career sounds very ominous. It sounds as if everybody's out here to use politics as a platform for personal gain, not necessarily economic gain, but for that matter, just a gain of some sort. For me, politics was a matter of choice. I was very clear. I was working with a few NGOs and people who were in the social sector, who were working in tribal areas where nobody had even heard of them, and there were no cameras chasing them. They were the unsung heroes who even now have not received due recognition for their work. And every time I would discuss issues with them, they would tell me that, I'm here at the bottom of this entire network, trying to contribute a little. But the true contribution, if I could ever do, would be if I was a policy maker, if I had a contribution in how legislation, laws are framed in our country. And that is when I decided that if I genuinely want to be a part of the change, I need to reach that platform where I can contribute to how policy is framed. So that is the agenda, if you can call it that, that drove me to where I am today. I was very clear. Each and every bill that has been given to me to work on by Arun Jaitley ji, who is our leader of opposition, I have literally pored over every line of it as though my life depends on it. And there has been times when my seniors have told me that, my God, you are poring over each line. I said, because this is what drove me to come to politics. The fact that I could contribute to legislation. There are many people who tell me at times, even in parliament, my God, you would not want to leave a single loophole in a single law that you are debating, because I know what loopholes do to the common citizen, in courts, on the streets. So I was very clear that this is what drives me, to ensure that as long as I am there in parliament, at least my agenda is very clear. That when it comes to legislation, I'll pore over each line, each comma, each full stop, to ensure at least there are no loopholes when it comes to a citizen getting justice, when it comes to a citizen getting fruits of development. First question that needs to be asked of any congressman or congresswoman is, do they have the courage to announce Rahul Gandhi?
You are one of the more public faces of the BJP, you sort of, in a sense, in a corporate setup, you would have said you front communication. And no, honestly, you front communication and image management for them. So how difficult is that for you? Because you have to, you have to be on different televised debates.
Well,
in
to
the
be shouted
country.
at every night
Yes,
by
how
an
difficult
anchor
is that?
gives me a earache. But for me, like I said, you had asked me in the beginning of your interview what it does to me personally. For me, BJP is my family.
Yeah.
So everything related to BJP I take very personally. At times I am counseled that no, Smriti, you need to be not get so bothered about what happens in terms of politically people attacking BJP. But I take everything said about my organization, my seniors very, very seriously. And I think that is the real me. And I think that is what compels me to push that little harder, to contribute that little more, or to go an extra mile with regards to whatever I do in life.
What do you do for lung power? Because that's really important when you go into one of those.
I think Lagpa is engineered by like I said, the emotive pull on the issue. It's not something that, if you look at my speeches in Rajya Sabha also, I don't give dry speeches. If you look at my campaign speeches, you will find I don't give a rata written speech. That is not me. I speak from the heart on issues which I find are of importance to people and importance to my organization.
Staying with this whole track of image management and all, and
I never managed my image.
okay,
I should start.
I'm not saying your image because your image is there. I'm saying because you're in the larger scheme of public perception and image management. How important is social media?
These are people with opinions. These are
Okay.
citizens of the country.
Yeah.
There are many in the Congress party who dismiss them and say that they don't come out and vote, but I would disregard that kind of a cynicism about them. At the end of the day, whether a citizen is voting for me or not, that citizen has a right to an opinion. That citizen has a right to use a platform to voice that opinion. And it is extremely essential for a political activist and a leader and an organization to listen to that voice. And I think that in my interaction with certain people on the social media, I have told them in whatever my capacity to ensure that that percolates to the ground, that if they hear, I mean, the Uttarakhand tragedy,
yes.
there were so many from the social media who contributed directly their time, their money. They went and give their services to people so that relief could be offered directly by them, and that there was no institution directing them to do so. There was no government directing them to do so.
Yeah.
So I think that there will be examples where you see that the social media has contributed effectively, and those who are cynical about it, I think need to understand that aspect as well.
Okay, and again coming back to someone who, like I said, is one of the public faces of the party, seen on different forums, including social media. What do you have to say about a certain perception among Twitter, among social media, among a certain urban middle class maybe, of there's a lot of talk of the polarizing power of Mr. Narendra Modi. Now, if you had to tackle that purely on communications level, how would you do that?
I think that if I notice the trend of how the Congress is communicating in the past 1 or 2 months, for me it is extremely distressing that they will not spend that much time discussing how they are rehabilitating Uttarakhand. They would rather shift the focus to Modi, because for them that becomes a target everybody can jump on, while nobody questions them about what happens in Uttarakhand. It is interesting to see that they will not talk about the solar scam in Kerala. It is more convenient to jump on Modi and possibly target him for some inane thing. If you notice, all the Congress spokespersons have been giving some inane statement or the other targeting Mr. Modi and not reflecting on an economy which is in shambles, not reflecting on the fact that the rupee is devaluing every single day, not reflecting on the fact that there are youngsters out there in need of a job and not getting those opportunities for employment. And I think more and more citizens now realize that that is an old beaten drum of the Congress party, that every time questions with regards to development or economy come into the sphere of or realm of discussion, the only way of escaping is to target Modi and get out. But for how long will they evade these questions that people are putting to them?
But as a political party, do you not consider it important to counter that perception?
We are countering that perception on every possible occasion and platform, but as an individual, I am of the opinion that the Congress tactic of engaging us only on that one issue and not addressing issues which are extremely important for the country also says something about the Congress party. I mean, wouldn't you rather today that you have a response from the Congress party? I'll give you a very small example. The Uttarakhand Chief Minister says 3,000 Indians died. There were 6,900 complaints registered with the police about people who are missing. Then the Home Ministry has a different number. If you go on other numbers, you will find that the Army or the Air Force has different numbers to give you. Here's a government which cannot come to a conclusion about how many people are missing, how many people are dead, and what is happening on the ground in terms of rehabilitation. So I'm of the opinion that every time this polarizing debate starts, only when they want to evade questions about what is happening to the economy, what is happening to the country.
Okay, we're going into election year, and all the campaigns have, you know, everything, the media, there's lots of anticipation and all of that. How do you react to it becoming a Modi versus Rahul debate instead of issues?
Does the Congress have the courage to announce Rahul Gandhi? Once the Congress announces Rahul Gandhi, we'll talk. First question that needs to be asked of any congressman or congresswoman is, do they have the courage to announce Rahul Gandhi?
But what would you rather the focus be on, personalities or issues?
We are very clear. Good governance is the issue and development is the issue on which we are talking to the people of the country. But when you tell me about personality wars, my question is very simple. Has Rahul Gandhi been declared by the Congress party? They don't have the courage to declare his name because they know that that gets them nothing but negativity from the people of India. A man who goes missing every time there's a crisis in India. He comes to Maharashtra to visit drought affected districts in monsoon. So let them decide and declare who is running for Prime Minister on their end, and then we'll talk.
But the BJP has decided.
I think my president has been extremely vocal that the parliamentary board will make the requisite announcement, and they shall, and you shall wait for it.
All right. On that note, thank you so much, Smriti, for being on the A-list. Thank you.